Kevin Feige and Ryan Coogler spill the tea on the Black Panther trailer, and it is hot. I'm Roth Cornett, and this is Screen Junkies News. The Black Panther teaser broke the internet when it debuted during Game 4 of the NBA Finals. Everyone, including us, took a deep dive into the trailer to glean whatever information we possibly could about the hotly anticipated Marvel movie. Now, that's pretty normal for a trailer, but this time it wasn't just us fanboys and girls / people. Director and co-writer Ryan Coogler and president of Marvel Studios himself, Kevin Feige, sat down with Entertainment Weekly, I Am Peanut Butter and Jealous, to give some insider information. Joining us today to discuss are DJ Wooldridge, which is a very hard name to say, people, but a very smart guy, and Daniel Radford. This did, in fact, break the internet and our brains, right? On Friday night. We stayed late on Friday night, covered it just as quickly as we could, but we have so much more information today from the team behind the film. There's a lot to get into. So if you guys are excited about the movie, tune in now. Look, some people don't want to know anything. Right. You're not our audience. Not our audience. They didn't click this. We want to know everything. Our audience wants to know everything, so much to the point that I kept saying the Game 4, because to me it was like sport team. I don't know. Black Panther happened. All right. Let's start with the interrogation scene. Danielle, we talked a little bit about this on Friday, but we got so much more information.
We did, which was super cool. So we've known for a while that parts of Black Panther are going to take place in Korea. This happens in Korea, according to the Entertainment Weekly article. So this is not Wakanda. They are in Korea. You can see that Claw is missing his arm in that shot. And we find out in the comics, Claw has like an arm cannon. And the way they do it in the movie, Claw is going to take some Wakandan mining technology and use that to make a freaking cannon.
That's dope. I was worried they weren't going to do the arm cannon.
They are. I'm so excited. Oh, I'm so excited. And so then you get that shot of Black Panther and his chief security guard that comes up next with them kind of watching through the window. And you can see here, now we got really excited. We thought that it was Ayo, who's played by Flores Kasumo, but it's actually Okoye, who was played by The Walking Dead's Dana Guerrera. And they revealed that during this scene, they're both really concerned because Claw is telling everything about Wakanda and how advanced they are, and they don't want outsiders to know. So they are super worried that now this agent is getting all of this information.
Yeah, and just for folks that don't know, Denai plays Michonne on The Walking Dead, and she is the head of the Dora Milaje here. Yeah.
Yeah, super, super exciting. Okay, and so then we got that great scene of Killmonger, Eric Killmonger, played by my babe, Michael B. Jordan, breaking him out. And so they didn't want to tell us too much about Killmonger, but one thing we know from the comics is that Killmonger's dad worked for Claw, and that's why their family was exiled from Wakanda. So that could maybe come into play a little bit in here, could explain why he helps break him out. It's cool.
Interesting. That's super cool.
We also have some new details on the Coronation scene, which initially, Danielle, talk about what you thought that might have been. So we can spin you back.
So first when I saw this, I thought like that might be, there's that hall of kind of dead Black Panthers where you go, and if you are a Black Panther, you get to commune with your ancestors and get advice and counsel from them. And then Roth told us that she did a visit where they showed that scene. And what was that?
That is the Coronation scene, as I just said previously. It's so funny. I'm like, let me set you up to remind us that I said a thing. That wasn't the point of that. It was that it couldn't look like that, but it's actually the Coronation scene, and they revealed a little bit more about that, right, DJ?
Yeah, they revealed that these observers are other leaders of other tribes in Wakanda. So there's the one kingdom of Wakanda that's made up of United Nations of different tribes. Yeah. That you're seeing all there.
Yeah, and these dudes do not get along. Like they are not all buds.
They're all in the same boat. And there's a character that we see later on that I think factors into that, but that's me speculating. That's not.
Well, we'll talk about that too because it looks so cool.
The other thing too is, so this is what I was saying is that we had done a visit to Marvel Studios where they sort of took us through the studios. They took us through the process of how they make movies from inception through final, and they showed us some dailies and some scenes from Black Panther that haven't been seen in this trailer. One of them was the lead up to the Coronation scene and the Coronation scene itself, but there were boats coming in from the different tribes, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about Forrest Whitaker and what we know about his character.
So we talked a little bit about that, and we had that great scene of him, Forrest Whitaker. So he is like the spiritual leader, and Ryan Coogler compared his character character Zuri to Obi-Wan. He was like, this is Black Panther's Obi-Wan. He's a spiritual leader. And there is this another scene now right there. He is stirring something in this pot and he's surrounded by children. And so in this, we find out that they are preparing the preparation for the heart-shaped herb. And the heart-shaped herb in the comics is how Black Panthers get their power. It's the way that they are able to fight Captain America and like be okay and all that jumping around on cars that he does. He gets that power from the heart-shaped herb. And so Feige said with the heart-shaped herb, it's partially spiritual. We certainly don't call it magic, but there's vibranium that has been interwoven within that soil and that land for thousands of years. So there are other things going on with it. And that's what gives this herb kind of its power, is from its proximity to vibranium.
I really like that Black Panther gets his own Obi-Wan, but it gets a mentor figure. And then also cool, hearing about stuff like this, it really feels like they're building out the world. So it's a place that you can believe in. It's a place that has history and culture. And it's not just, it doesn't feel like it just came into existence for this movie to happen, you know? Yeah.
And I think it's those layers that make the world feel real, right? And they have you connecting to the movie in a deeper way and the characters. I will ask a follow-up question. Is that in fact how metal works?
Oh, where you put it into soil and it fertilizes plants? No. Back to you, Rob.
Fair enough. You know what though? I don't care. Suspending the disbelief immediately. Let's talk about the council scene a little bit. Let's pull that up, because we've learned a little bit about this gentleman.
Yes. Yeah, the interesting thing is that what part that stands out is the plate in his mouth. But I'd like to point out his suit is dope.
That's amazing.
He's that guy is a snappy dresser, and I'm all about it.
I think he's also aware of it, rightfully so.
We are not given his name in the article. He's known as the River Tribe Elder, and the actor that plays him is Isaac de Bonkele. Fingers crossed I got that right. Anyway, we actually see him in the background in a shot later. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that he might be one of the tribe leaders that is not on board with what T'Challa is doing in Wakanda. That's the vibe I get.
You know, green is a very classic villain color.
Classic villain color. He's obviously important to the story, but not necessarily important enough to get a name. I'd say like low-key political villain.
Right.
That's my go-to on that one.
And let's talk about how those politics might play out a little bit in terms of how the tribes function together. We're going to get into that with a few other characters as well, but just in sort of general terms from the comics.
Well, again, we know that there are these 18 tribes. We know that they all have their own figureheads and their own leaders, but they are all underneath the king. They are all underneath Black Panther.
And what we know is that he's dealing with both infighting in this world, and he's also having to deal, because this has been in a very isolationist society, he's having to deal with the exterior world in a way that he hadn't to previously.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the premise that we got is kind of like the burgeonings of like a civil war within the community, which would feel like that's how Killmonger gets in there, that he's kind of stoking those fires to maybe take Wakanda away from T'Challa.
Right.
But it's interesting that if he's stoking the isolationist fears, however he's working with Claw, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
So we've talked about this a little bit in terms of how he's functioning with the outside world, and we know there was a scene with him at the UN. Now we know a little bit more of why he was there.
Just a little bit. It looks like it might have to deal with climate change and global warming, which would make a certain amount of sense in the fact that that's the kind of the one thing that would keep you from being isolationist. It doesn't really matter what anybody else does, except when it affects the whole planet, because then whether you like it or not, you're involved. So it would make sense that is kind of like his, like, hey, maybe you'd think aliens invading New York might be the thing, but apparently climate change is the thing.
So we also speculated about a scene where he's sort of walking towards a group of people with the mask off. What did we learn about that?
So for that scene where he was walking towards the guy, and we were wondering, we were like, is this like, is he being like, hey, come at me, I'm here. Like, what are we doing? They didn't want to give that away, which makes me think that this is probably a pretty pivotal scene, but we know that it happens right by one of the vibranium mines. So they're all hanging out by the vibranium mine. So could this be one of those like, oh no, you don't get to, these are our mines, these are my mines. Could it be a fight over what's in them? We know that Claw's looking for vibranium, and we do know from some of the stills that we saw that Killmonger is there. So
it still looks to me like a come and get it kind of moment, rather than a surrender kind of moment. There was also a scene that takes place in the snow with Angela Bassett, who plays his mother.
Oh my God,
a lot more about that.
Yeah, which is fantastic. So that is his mother Ramonda, and his sister Shuri. And there's also, you can't really see him, but right there you can see Everett K. Ross. You're also going to see Lupita Nyong'o's character. And so this area is ruled by M'Baku, aka Man Ape, which is what he's called in the comics. I doubt they're going to call him Man Ape in the movies. Probably not going to call him that. But so we see him, there he is kind of holding on to somebody there in that scene. And then we see him also, that scene where we were like, who is fighting in this water? What is this scene with Killmonger? Is this a training scene? What are we doing? He is fighting M'Baku.
Yeah. And this is also where you get a guy in the snappy dresser in the back corner.
Yep, you can see him right back there. And so a little bit about him. In the comics, he is a Wakandan who is second in power in Wakanda as far as like physical power, only to the Black Panther. And his whole thing in the comics is he doesn't like that over these, however many thousand years they've become this technologically advanced. He wants to go back to the old school, so he keeps trying to overtake and start ruling Wakanda. But yeah, he is in charge of that kind of snowy area, which is, I believe, it's called Jabari. So he is the leader of that area.
So do you think maybe Killmonger's fighting him in that scene in like a Highlander that can be only one thing, that he has to like work his way up the ranks to get to the, like he has to take out all the other pretenders to the throne before he actually gets to
so that everyone will unite behind him before he goes after.
I'm just wondering.
Maybe.
Yeah, because it's weird
good storytelling.
The classic, these two villains are classically Black Panther villains, so it's weird that they wouldn't
Why
be
would they be fighting?
Yeah.
Right. And one thing we do know is that he's going to be in Infinity War. Man Ape, again, probably not Man Ape, but M'Baku was going to be in Infinity War. That was broken in a tweet, oddly enough, by IMDb. Like, they found it to be so important that they tweeted about it. And we're
hey,
like,
guys.
Oh, hey, by the way, he's confirmed for Infinity War.
In case you weren't checking out Infinity War, Man Ape's going to be in there, so maybe reconsider.
If you weren't into it.
Yeah, if you weren't into it, now's the time.
That's a lot of characters.
Yeah.
Like, it's just more and more characters all the time. But it is interesting. I wonder if they're kind of like readjusting that history a little bit to say, so now that we know that they're coming out and they're not as isolationist, maybe that's the thing he has a problem with more than the technology, right? I don't know.
Could be.
What did we learn about the technology?
We learned that it kind of follows along with the comic books, that they're one of the most advanced nations in the entire planet. And in fact, his sister, whose name I'm forgetting right now, Shuri is on par with Iron Man as far as a measure. Fun note, also was Black Panther for a minute.
Yep, in the comics she winds up being Black Panther, which is awesome. So yeah, we don't know like how much she has to do with kind of that. One thing we know, which is really cool, is that Wakandan computers don't even work on binary. So like our computers and Wakandan computers couldn't even talk to each other.
Yeah.
Like you can't hack them, you can't do anything. And so of course it makes complete sense that like his sister, who's this inventor, would be at the Tony Stark level. Yeah. In fact, it's kind of, I wonder, and there she is, she's on the right there. I wonder how many people here are on Tony Stark level just by virtue of how technologically advanced the society is.
Well, traditionally in the comics, Black Panther is one of the smartest people on the planet. I wonder if they're going to play that down a little bit just to make Iron Man feel more special. Because if you've got,
if he is going to play it down.
Yeah, because if you've got a guy that's like one of the greatest inventors in the world, super genius, also a king, also one of the best fighters, like suddenly Iron Man's not looking so hot.
I don't know. I mean, I certainly hope not. In a way. Also, look at that. And we were talking about this earlier. There's just no arguing with it, right? Look at that society. Look at how advanced they are. And there's just going to be no debate about that. But I will ask us this. At what point is it sort of like you can no longer be isolationist? Because clearly they have seen the world evolve and watched wars and gone like, you'll figure it out. Yeah. But is it the point of alien invasion in New York and entire cities being dropped on the earth that you should then intercede?
I think
they did.
It appears that the line in the sand for this version of them is alien invasion in New York plus cities being dropped by angry robots plus your dad being blown up, and now you're not isolationist anymore. Like that's the equation.
It's basically like killer robot, killer aliens. Oh no, and my dad. And now they're like, I guess we've got to figure out global warming because,
which is really interesting because it's kind of like, all right, I guess this is the point we really have to band together with the rest of humanity to fight the aliens and the robots. Plus, us. Let's clean this up.
Exactly.
If I'm gonna come out here, we may as well.
Yeah, and then, you know, like crazy witch women putting exploding dudes into like a building full of your aid workers. Like, I guess that's what does it.
Because I would say, in their defense, like, the rest of humanity kind of sucks.
No,
you know?
for sure.
So I get holding out. I get waiting to the last minute to go out there.
But at a certain point, when aliens show up, y'all should probably start boarding them super jets.
Right, but and it is an interesting thing too, because if you think about what they're fighting over, if it's resources, right, that is a thing that you would want to protect, and it's easier probably than having to fight constantly to just not let people know that you're there and you have it. Because people are going to be after not only the vibranium, they're going to be after that technology. They're going to, you know what I mean? So it is going to have to be, that's sort of an interesting plot point. Do you think they'll address that in this film? It does get very global.
I think so. It feels like the type of movie that would address that. Yeah, because it seems like it's really embracing the culture in a really interesting way, and I feel like that would come up as part of the story.
Yeah, interesting. This trailer, like we said, lit everybody on fire. Let's talk about how big it was.
This was like everywhere. The Black Panther trailer was in the top 3 for most watched MCU trailer, and it's only Tuesday. It came out on like Friday. It had 18 million views, and that includes the 19 million views it got from people who were already watching the NBA Finals, that Game 4.
Jeez.
It had Thor Ragnarok is the most watched with 136 million views. I'm sure that people really like that Hulk scene where he's like, well, he's my friend from work. And I have to read this because this is a bit, so it's 349,000 Twitter mentions in 24 hours, which is more than Game 4 got. And it is the second most tweeted teaser trailer. It's only beaten by The Last Jedi, the Star Wars The Last Jedi tweeter.
That is amazing.
That's crazy.
So, and the hashtag was?
What was the hashtag?
The hashtag, well, one of the hashtags that's been around forever is hashtag Black Panther so lit, or Black Panther is so lit, which has been around since all of this casting news started coming out, and all of these huge, like, Black nerds, blurs, fan favorites started getting attached to this movie. That's where the Black Panther so lit hashtag has come from, and so that's been going strong for, I want to say, at least like 6 months. That'll come back around every time Black Panther news comes up.
Do you guys have any other hashtags that Marvel could use for the rest of their franchises?
I came up with a couple. I was like, I could do this.
I like how I asked you to, just off the top of my head.
Just if you want to think about it. One of mine was hashtag Gimme Thor instead of Gimme More. You could do Gimme Thor.
Nice.
And my other one, and this will take some explaining, Thor's Day Thoughts, because one of the popular hashtags is Thursday Thoughts, but you could also spell it THOT, which y'all know what that means. You have Google. But so it could also be Thor's Day Thoughts, which would just be like a bunch of really hot girls cosplaying as Thor.
I'm into that. I think that's a winner. I think that one's a winner. Mine is things Spidey kids remember, kind of like things 90s kids remember, but only for kids that were bitten by radioactive spiders.
It's like a really small portion of people tweeting.
It's a little more specific. It's not as good as Thor's Day Thoughts.
There are more kids who have been bitten by spiders in the MCU, radioactive spiders, than you would necessarily think.
But
there's at least like 4.
In the real world, not so much.
Not so much.
Not so much.
How would you guys convert popular hashtags to Marvel hashtags? Let us know in the comments below. And also, we want to know, are you ready for Black Panther? Let us know in the comments about that too. And remember, be nice to each other. Please. It's a big world. It's scary. It's nice to be nice. Hey, thanks for watching. Please click here for more internets. Tweet us at SJ News. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. We'll see you next time.